As the work stopped in September, the plague arrived the following month, silencing the hammers forever. The devastation was absolute.
On October 18, 1968, in the Ecclesiastical Archives of Avignon, a medieval historian named Jean-Paul Moreau examined construction ledgers from 1346 to 1350. Rain drummed against ancient windows. The air smelled of damp stone and aging parchment. He was documenting economic impacts of the Black Death for a standard academic monograph, work that would confirm the accepted narrative. Plague killed workers, construction stopped, an era ended. The ledgers showed something else. In September 1347, across 12 cathedral sites from Barcelona to Prague, construction ceased simultaneously. Not gradually as workers sickened and died, not in waves as plague spread from city to city. Simultaneously, within a 2-week period spanning September 14th to September 28th, 1347. The Black Death reached Europe in October 1347. The construction stopped before the plague arrived. Moreau found termination records. Work ceased by order, September 22nd, 1347. Construction halted per directive, September 19th, 1347. All labor suspended pending instruction, September 24th, 1347. Every record used similar language, by order, per directive, pending instruction. None mentioned disease. None mentioned death. None mentioned any threat to worker health. The instructions to stop came before anyone in these cities had died of plague. In the margin of one ledger from Cologne, someone had written in different ink decades later. They knew something was coming, but they stopped building before it arrived. Moreau photographed the documents. His monograph, published in 1971, mentioned the timing discrepancy in a footnote. The footnote was removed during peer review. The reviewer's comment, confusing chronology distracts from main narrative. The photographs remain in Moreau's archive at the Sorbonne, labeled Pre-Plague Cessation Anomaly, Unresolved. History remembers progress but forgets what it replaced. By the autumn of 1346, according to scattered documents discovered in archives across Europe, an unusual pattern had emerged. Fog drifted through Paris as papal envoys traveled between cathedral construction sites, carrying sealed instructions marked Urgente non aperire. Urgent, do not open. The instructions were delivered to master builders at major Gothic sites between August and December 1346. The recipients were sworn to secrecy. The oaths survive in fragmentary form, references in guild records to vows taken regarding cessation, and sworn silence on termination orders. What the instructions contained is not recorded in any public document, but in January 1347, the first construction slowdowns began, not labor shortages. Slowdowns, deliberate reduction in work pace measured in guild logs as reduced hours per directive and limited operations as instructed. The workers were healthy, the funds were available, the projects were incomplete, yet work slowed. By summer 1347 in Strasbourg, a mason's private letter described the situation. Heat shimmered through the cathedral construction site. The letter, discovered in 1893, stated, "We are told to prepare for cessation." No reason given, the master builders meet in secret. They speak of calculations, of measurements taken, of something that must not continue. He wrote, "I do not understand why we stop when so much remains unbuilt." The letter ends, Perhaps it is better not to understand. On September 14th, 1347, the first formal cessation order was recorded at Notre-Dame de Paris. The order, preserved in the Cathedral Construction Archive, specified all vertical construction to cease immediately, existing structures to be sealed and secured, no new foundations to be laid, no spires to be extended. The order came from the Archbishop's office. It referenced consultation with masters of measurement and calculation, and noted that continuation poses risk to civic order. The same phrase, risk to civic order, appeared in cessation orders from 6 different cities over the next 2 weeks. The Black Death would not reach Paris for another 4 months. Shadows lengthened across Prague on September 22, 1347, when construction at St. Vitus Cathedral halted. Workers were paid through the end of the month, given severance, and dismissed. The payroll records survive, showing final payments marked termination per instruction from Rome. Rome. Not local authorities, not the Archbishop of Prague. Rome. A directive had come from the highest ecclesiastical authority, ordering construction stopped across Catholic Europe. The directive itself has never been found. In Vienna, on September 28, 1347, the last recorded cessation before plague arrived. The cathedral construction log notes, final work completed as ordered, spire height, 136.7 meters. Construction terminated per requirement. Towers sealed per specification. Towers sealed. The entry continues. All acoustic elements dismantled. Resonant chambers filled. Network connections severed. Acoustic elements. Resonant chambers. Network connections. The terminology appears in no other construction document from the medieval period. Someone later crossed out this section in heavy black ink, but the words remain legible beneath. By October 1347, the Black Death had indeed arrived in Europe, brought by ships to Mediterranean ports. The plague would kill millions over the following years, a catastrophe that dominates historical understanding of the mid-14th century. Yet when historians examined cathedral construction records in the 19th and 20th centuries, they found a pattern that plague, alone, could not explain. Construction had stopped before the disease arrived, everywhere, simultaneously. Coal smoke drifted through London in 1889 when a researcher examining guild records discovered payment ledgers showing something unexpected. Workers laid off in September 1347 were paid severance packages equivalent to 6 months' wages, extraordinary compensation for a time supposedly facing economic collapse. The payments were documented as final settlement per extraordinary directive. Workers who lost their jobs due to plague in later years received no such compensation. The September 1347 workers were paid as if their termination was planned, organized, compensated, not a desperate response to crisis. In a letter discovered in 2001, a laid-off mason from Cologne wrote to his brother in December 1347, "I received payment enough to support my family through next summer. I was told the work would not resume. I was told not to seek similar employment. I was told the era of high building is finished." The era of high building is finished. He wrote this 3 months before plague reached Cologne, 4 months before mass death began. Frost-coated windows in 1923 when an architectural historian examining cessation patterns noticed geographical clustering. Cities where Gothic construction stopped in September 1347 were cities with hollow spires, copper networks, magnetic crosses, mathematically precise arch angles. Cities that had implemented the acoustic and electromagnetic systems. cities where those systems had been functioning for decades or centuries. Construction stopped at these sites. It did not stop at churches built in simpler Romanesque style. It did not stop at structures lacking the sophisticated acoustical and mathematical elements. The pattern was specific. Gothic high structures with complex interior systems ceased construction. Everything else continued. The historian's paper submitted to a conference in 1924 noted, "The cessation appears selective rather than universal. Only specific architectural types were affected by the September directives." The paper was not accepted for presentation. The rejection stated, "Evidence insufficient to challenge plague-based explanation," in the margin of his manuscript, or evidence challenges too much to be acceptable. By 1348, as plague ravaged Europe, the construction cessation became permanent. Workers who survived the disease did not return to Gothic cathedral building. The skilled craftsmen dispersed, taking their knowledge with them. Apprenticeships in Gothic high building ended. The transmission of techniques, of mathematical knowledge, of acoustic principles, all ceased. Within a generation, the capability to build at Gothic scale and complexity had been lost. Official histories attribute this to economic and demographic collapse from plague. Fewer workers, less wealth, diminished ambition. Yet records show something different. In 1352, with plague still raging, construction began on multiple new churches across Europe. But these structures were different. Lower, simpler, lacking the tall spires and complex interior systems of Gothic cathedrals. The prohibition, it seemed, was specific. Not against church building. Against Gothic building, against the hollow spires, the copper networks, the resonant systems. Air smelled of varnish in 1956, when a researcher examining post-plague construction specifications discovered explicit restrictions. Documents from 1350 to 1360 show building permits that specify height not to exceed 50 meters, no hollow construction, no acoustic chambers, solid stone only. The restrictions were lifted in some regions by 1380, but by then the knowledge was gone. The master builders who understood Gothic systems had died, of plague, yes, but also of age, of dispersion, of the breaking of guild continuity. The tradition had been deliberately interrupted. The plague provided cover, but the cessation had begun before the disease arrived. In Rome, in archives rarely accessed, documents survive from September 1346, a full year before the cessation. Dust moved through lamplight in 1987 when a researcher discovered correspondence between the papal office and consultants in natural philosophy. The letters discussed measurements, frequencies, accumulated effects. One letter from August 1346 stated, "The reports from various sites confirm concern. The concentration of resonant structures has reached levels deemed inadvisable. Recommendation: systematic cessation." Another from September 1346. Authorization granted for coordinated termination. Envoys to be dispatched with sealed directives. Timing critical before winter construction season begins. The letters never mention plague. They mention coordination, timing, termination. They mention eliminating something that had been built deliberately over 2 centuries. In Florence, a document from October 1347, as plague was beginning, records an unusual meeting between church officials and masters of measurement. The meeting discussed neutralization of existing systems and prevention of reactivation. The meeting concluded, "Plague provides opportunity. Cessation will be attributed to disease rather than directive." Attributed to disease rather than directive. The document is catalogued as Administrative Notes, Plague Response Planning. The content suggests something else. Heat pressed against windows in 2003 when modern researchers analyzed the timeline using digital databases. They mapped cessation dates, plague arrival dates, construction types, geographic patterns. The analysis confirmed. Gothic construction with sophisticated systems stopped before plague arrived. Simpler construction continued. The cessation was selective, coordinated, and preceded the disease that supposedly caused it. The analysis was published in a specialized journal of architectural history. It generated minimal response. One review noted, "Interesting data, anomaly." However, conventional plague explanation remains most partiable. In the margin of a library copy, most partiable or most comfortable, modern acoustic engineers examining what was lost when Gothic construction stopped note that the systems, hollow spires, copper networks, magnetic crosses, golden angle arches, would have created cumulative effects. Multiple cathedrals, each generating low-frequency fields, each creating electromagnetic zones, each structured by precise mathematical ratios. Together they would have formed a network of acoustic and electromagnetic effects spanning Gothic Europe, a network that by 1347 had been functioning and expanding for 2 centuries, a network that someone in 1346 decided must be stopped. If history is written by survivors, who erased the rest? Today, Gothic cathedrals stand incomplete across Europe. Spires that were meant to rise higher, towers that were meant to be paired, structures that stop at heights reached by September 1347. Tourists visit them. Guides explain, the Black Death stopped construction, economic collapse, loss of skilled labor, an era's end. The guides do not mention that construction stopped before the plague arrived. They do not mention the sealed directives, the coordinated cessation, the papal authorization for systematic termination. They do not mention that simpler buildings continued while Gothic structures halted. They do not mention the acoustic elements dismantled, the resonant chambers filled, the network connections severed. The evidence survives in archives. The September 1347 cessation orders, the August 1346 papal correspondence, the post-plague construction restrictions, the admission that disease provided cover for directive. What survives less clearly is why. Why stop the construction before plague arrived? Why coordinate the cessation so precisely? Why permanently prevent the resumption of Gothic building? The plague killed millions. It changed Europe forever. Its devastation was real. But the Gothic cessation began before the first death, continued through the recovery, and persisted long after plague ended. The disease was catastrophic. But the cessation was intentional. The Black Death destroyed much. But Gothic construction was stopped deliberately, systematically, permanently, for reasons the plague merely concealed. Yes, our video ends here. I await your comments below. Thanks for listening.